Give yourself 2. Give yourself 3. Give yourself 3. Give yourself 1. 1. 1. 1. Somebody scream! Oh, y'all said, all right, have a seat. Thanks so much. Today is about decisions. You've already made a decision. The fact that you are here, you have made a decision. But I am going to challenge you over the next few minutes to make a decision. To make it. You come to these kind of events because either you've already made a decision or you want to be inspired to make a decision. So let's just dive right into it. Make a decision. Make a decision. Now this decision that you're making, you know, you've heard the term, whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Yes? Not today. What happens in here, this decision that you're going to make for yourself is beyond, well beyond this room. And the people that are in your lives and the lives that you're going to affect and touch based off of the decision that you're making today. Why is this decision so important? Why do we put such an emphasis on the decision or on a decision? Deciding is the first piece. And why do I challenge? The challenge is this, and it's not a simple challenge. This is something that I want to take you back. I want to take you back to a time before life choked out your decision making. Before circumstances choked out your decision making. Before life choked out your dreams. When I was 13 years old, my family moved from Alabama to Milwaukee. Oh, by the way, Ohio State Roll Tide. No, nothing personal. My family moved from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. From Dothan, Alabama to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 13 years old. Before we had moved there, I started playing football in 3rd grade back in 1990. And I had decided way back then, you know what? I want to play in the National Football League. In fact, the first night that I ever played the game, I played for a team called the Superfoods Redskins. And the first night that I played, well, the first night that they played, I watched, but I fell in love with the game. And I kind of thought in the back of my head, you know, what if, remember when we were a kid? Remember when you were a little kid? Remember I just talked about before life choked stuff out? Remember when you were this? That's me. Remember that guy? Not me, you. Put your picture over there. Not me, you. Put your picture there, 6, 7 years old. Put that picture in your head right now and think about that person. Think about that uninhibited, crazy, wild, thought-thinking, I'm going to do it all kid. Remember that person? Remember that person? Well, I decided, here's the deal. That night, my first football game, I wasn't even on the field. Anybody know anything about football? Anybody know about football pads and pants? You remember the knee, you know, you got thigh pads, you got knee pads? My knee pads was tucked up underneath here, under the thigh. I wasn't even in uniform correctly. That's how bad it was. But I had decided, I got this crazy idea. Remember those crazy ideas? I got this crazy idea. I said, you know, what if I made it to the National Football League and found my dad? That's crazy. What if I got on Monday Night Football and had to play the game, and they finally take those cameras and stick them in my face, and I say, hey, Daddy! That was the plan. So away I went. Only problem was that first night when we played, I was a minimal play kid, so I didn't get to play all that much, but something happened that night. We're on the goal line, and the ball snaps, and I hear this loud boom, this crash of the pass. Yes! This is for me! Even though I was over this way, and that was for he, not for me, because I was on the bench. I went home that night, and at this point, I'm sold. I told my mom, Mama, still in my uniform except for the helmet, sitting up on the kitchen counter. Mama, I'm going to play in the National Football League. And she said, well, I know what she said first, before she said the motherly thing. She said, boy, you didn't even play. You still clean. We don't even have to wash your uniform. One decision. One decision. One decision to govern all of my choices going forward. You make decisions and then life all of a sudden begins to happen. And obstacles come. And 5 years later, when you're 13 years old, you're 8th grade, and your family decides to move to Milwaukee, and then you end up in a homeless shelter. All of a sudden, everything that you thought that looked like the National Football League and this dream that you had doesn't look so much like that anymore. But that night on my bed, before I went to sleep that night, I looked up and I said, well, I guess I'll just have to make it to the NFL from here. Boom. That same decision. One decision. One decision. Now, when you're in a homeless shelter, there's a lot of things about homeless shelters that just don't look like. Now, this homeless shelter that we stayed in was like, remember Scooby-Doo? Remember the intro to Scooby-Doo? Dun, 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 dun. Remember the haunted house in Scooby-Doo? Dun, 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 dun. Remember that castle? That's what this place looked like. And it was scary, but it happened to have been like an old convent, like monastery for friars. All right, so when we walked in, so there was a place downstairs, there's a galley downstairs where you could go eat. Well, okay, remember, life is still happening. I'm still a kid, I'm still 13, so crazy stuff in my head. I still had stupid, crazy thoughts, even though your circumstances dictate otherwise. So I still had an adventure even in my moment of homelessness and staying in the shelter. So downstairs it was really dark, but they had these sconces on the wall. But they weren't placed close enough to where there was enough light. And then there was a corner to get to the kitchen. And so what I would do, because in my head, here's kid logic again, I could hear like these voices. There wasn't anybody. It's just in my head. So every time it was time to eat, I would be freaked out. Man, we gotta go downstairs and do this thing. And then you always had to make this left. But the hallways are so wide. So I'd get to a certain point and I go, ha! And nobody would be there. Clear sailing right to the kitchen, you eat and you live. So even in the midst of all of that stuff going on, I'm still a kid. Embarrassed, not wanting anybody to know that, hey, you know what? I'm in a shelter. My mom was like, no, you keep your head up and you go to school every day. This is really nobody's business. You still have some things to accomplish in your life. So after a week or so, I'm in this new school and I'm making friends. Everybody have friends. I was starting to make friends. And so we would all walk from school together. I found some friends. We'd walk from school. And a couple of days went by, and then one day they decided, hey, you know what, let's go this way. And I'm like, I don't want you to know that I'm staying in a shelter. So, hey, you know what, let's go the other way. No, let's go this way. So they take off. So at that point, remember crazy ideas in your head? At that point, I decided to lie. Anybody in here lie? Ever? So I decided to lie. I started making up reasons to go the other way. I was like, man, you know what? I left my geometry book. I didn't even take geometry, but I left it back at the school. I'd run the other way and go the other way. I was starting to run out of stuff to lie about, man, I left my pencil. Until one day I really had run out of stuff to say, and I just took my shoe and just threw it the opposite way so I could run and go get it. So, sunny day, kind of. It's now November, early December. And, you know, it had been cold, but for some reason it was a little sunny that day. Now, I mentioned before I'm from Dothan, Alabama. The coolest thing about moving from the south to the north, or at least in Milwaukee, was that there's professional sports. There's no pro teams in the state of Alabama, except for Alabama Crimson Tide. They don't play the players, so you know they're professionals. Roll Tide. But, so the Milwaukee Bucks arena was like down the hill. So one day, I was in the middle of my lie. I was operating very smoothly and calmly in my lie, successfully diverted their attention so I could go the opposite way. And I was in a daydream. I'm walking this way, and there's streets here, and this is Walnut Street. I'm on 6th Street. The shelter's around the corner yet. But down the hill, you could see the Mecca. The Mecca is where the Milwaukee Bucks play. And back then, you had Sidney Moncrief, Lanier, all of these guys, and I just thought, wow, that is really cool. So I'm daydreaming now, relieved that they don't know that I'm going to be making this left turn. And I'm looking, and the car almost hit me. I jumped back on the curb. And I made that same decision again. I made a decision that if I don't make that decision that day, I'm not standing here today. I said, God, if you get me out of this situation, I will spend my life sharing this story. One decision. One decision. One decision. Now, we have things that happen in our lives, and there's benchmarks in your life to where you think that the world is coming to an end. Remember Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941, remember that day? Well, December 7th, 1982 was my Pearl Harbor, the day that we ended up in that shelter. 41 years later, my ship sank, and nothing in that room looked like the National Football League, nothing in that room looked like Dothan, Alabama, nothing in that room looked like family, nothing in that room looked like hope, nothing in that room looked like anything except, let's go to sleep, let's get up the next day, and let's go. One decision. Now it took me almost getting hit by a car to kind of snap me out of it. But one decision. And I would not be here today sharing this story with you. This is not a football story. If you came for a football story, this isn't the story for you. This is about a decision. One decision. Your why defines your try. I had a huge why. That's a big why. And maybe I didn't have to take the route that I did, but I decided and made a commitment to try. Got 2 shoulder surgeries and almost had my limbs ripped off of my body to prove it. Why? Not just about the National Football League, but why? I wanted to find my father, my daddy. And there wasn't nothing you could tell me different. So away I went. So here's the good football story part. You want to hear it? I can tell it to you real quick. Graduated from Milwaukee South Division in 1987. Okay, went to University of Wisconsin lacrosse. All right, was All-American in indoor track in high school. Okay, All-State, All-Conference in track and field. All-American. Okay, went to University of Wisconsin lacrosse. Was All-American in football, All-American in track. Won a national championship in football. Won a national championship in track. I am now a member of the Hall of Fame, Wall of Fame at the University of Wisconsin lacrosse. Finally, at the end of that great career, one beautiful, awesome afternoon, I signed a free agent contract with the New York Football Giants and found myself in front of 70,000 football fans in Cincinnati, Ohio. Wow, there's the football part. Then went up to Canada, I got released, went to Canada, played 2 seasons, and the dream, boom, was over. So now what? Still didn't find my dad. still didn't find that thing that I was looking for. And then I had an awakening. Just like you. Remember you talked about your why, define your try. It begins to build and it begins to change somewhat. As you mature and you start adding pieces to your life, children, family, jobs, career. If you came here for a job, then leave. Because you should be here for a career. You should be here for a reason even bigger than just a job. Finding something. Your why. And if your why is not big enough, okay, then you need to change your try. Your try and your why has to get huge. It's got to be massive. And it's got to match. You can't have big why and little try. You have big why and little try, you're going to get cut. You will not make it in anything. So people ask me, okay, well, Norris, man, so you were in a shelter, you still went to college, still got that shot to be a pro athlete. What was that like? What is that? People, that's why they ask me to ask guys like us to go and talk. And I wasn't a Hall of Famer. You Google me, well, I might come up, but there's another Norris Thomas that doesn't look like me that played in the National Football League. You were like, oh, you with the Dolphins. I've had people say that. That is not me. Oh, God, that guy is like 60. Your why defines your try. It's got to be huge. I mean, like that, like that, like this, like family, like all of that stuff. And then the best part is the try. That's what's good. That's what you will think about. That's what you will be remembered for, is the effort in the hustle. You came here today because some of you have been trying, but maybe the try hasn't been big enough. Maybe the why still isn't big enough. That's the decision. That's the gauntlet I'm laying down for you today. When you go to these sales conferences, there's people in there that ain't one jack for their company, but they still taking a $3,000, $4,000 company paid trip to go back and be still in third, fourth, fifth place. Or not even in the running for the people that get to go up on the stage and get the awards. I like awards. You, it's employment. And not just employment. I want you to think past employment. You've probably heard this before. I want you to think about deployment. Let this career decision, this decision that you're making today, this connection, the connections that you're going to make today, isn't about just being employed. It's about being deployed. It's about branching out beyond yourself. Because at the end of the day, there's only so much money you can make, there's only so much house you can get, there's only so much car you can drive before you step into a realm of thinking outside of the box and thinking of the next man, the next person, the next child. So what is it? So what is it that allowed me, not just in that moment, but in every step of the way, when I've been at my best, when I've been at my best, when you've been at your best, what is it about the decision? You're going to know, going forward, from this day forward, if you made good on your decision. You'll know. How did I know? How did I know if I was really taking the steps early on to become a professional athlete? Well, you got to graduate high school, you got to play. That's part of it. Got to lift, got to go run, got to prepare. all this stuff you've heard about sports, sure. But one of the most important characteristics of this decision is sharp and focused. Not just focus, because I'll give you an idea of focus. Focus is, I'm going to shoot some resumes out to some people today online, and then I'm going to kind of just call it a day. Sharp and focus is, I'm going to get up at 9:15 and come and hear Norris Thomas speak and be at this event, because this is sharp and focused. This is why you're here, because now we've taken it to another level. You've got to compete. You're in competition.